A very, very warm welcome to everybody this evening. I'm so looking forward to this conversation with the beautiful Kimberley Harvey because I've no doubt it's going to be wonderful, meaty, fun, and probably a little entertaining. It's almost like playing a game of tennis when myself and Kimberley start talking. So the conversation could meander any which way, but it will all be about the area of the arts and inclusiveness in the practice. So, without further ado, hiya, Kimberley. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very, very good. Um, for those who don't know who you are and about your background, can you give us a tiny sense of, or not a tiny sense, but a sense, a real sense of how you got involved in inclusive practice in the first place, Kimberley?
Yeah, sure. I'm Kimberley Harvey. I am a disabled dancer, choreographer, facilitator, teacher, and a performer. I got into dance at the age of 12, through Candoco Dance Company's youth company. And
Mm.
that was my introduction to the world of dance and also to the world of inclusive dance. But I guess I didn't at that point see it as the world of inclusive dance. I just saw it as my way into dance because it was my first sort of try at dance full stop, I guess,
Mm.
as a participant. And then I have been working now for 15 years professionally, which feels like a very long time. But
Yes,
yeah,
it
I've
is.
been involved since the age of 12. So yeah,
Okay.
but professionally for 15 years.
And
Yeah.
Kimberly, from your experience from when you started 15 years ago, what was the driver for you at that point that wanted you to get involved in this practice?
I loved it. I loved it. Dance was where I felt at home. I felt like I could be um a version of myself at that point that felt true to who I was. I think
Mm.
up until that point, I'd been in education, and I'd been in education in quite a traditional sense. And I'd very much uh, exhausted myself, I guess, in education, and
Okay.
I found it was like the antithesis of everything. It was something, and yeah.
Your internet is a little bit lagging a tiny bit,
Oh
Kimberly.
no.
Just a smidgen. Sorry about that now, everyone. Hopefully it will rectify itself. Um,
Hopefully.
say your the last part of your sentence again, Kimberly. You were exhausted from education, so
Yeah, and whereas dance was this place that I felt that I own hard work, but it was a place that I loved and wanted to work hard at and was excited to be in. Yeah,
yeah,
I felt more me.
I bet you did. I bet you did. And so, from your point of view, at that very young age, and your introduction to Canduco and inclusive practice, how did you find that experience? Did you find it, you were saying that you felt the most best version of you. Did you find it in, what were the challenges? What were the pitfalls? What were the delights?
I think the delights were being with teachers that were just beautiful, that
Mm,
inspired me daily. And I'm still friends with a lot of them now, and they are very dear friends and colleagues now.
mm,
Um, and I was in a environment that was with disabled and non-disabled participants, and I didn't feel like I was one of the disabled ones. I was
mm,
just a dancer. We were all dancers. And when I say just, I don't mean just, but I mean we were all dancers. There was an equity, there was a huge excitement around performing, which is ironic because I was an incredibly shy child.
Mm.
But again, this place of performing and creating was something that I found incredibly exciting. And the idea that I was belonging to a youth company, I was belonging to a company. We were treated like, I remember them saying, we were given insights into the way the company worked. We were given insights into, and we were treated like a little company, a young company. And that was
Uh,
amazing for me.
and as you said, yeah, and as you said, there was real equity, and you were dancers. You were all just dancers, and that was the commonality. That
Yes.
was the commonality. Yeah. And so you never kind of feel then like other. You just
Mhm.
feel like, as you say, a company. A
Yes.
company. Have you ever been in a situation where it hasn't felt like that?
Yes.
And yeah, and tell me about that experience.
So I think again, I was very lucky in that my early experiences of dance were in this sort of very inclusive, very equitable space. And
Mm,
as I developed in my training, I took myself into more mainstream settings, which included, mainstream classes, which included trying to go through in conventional training in institutions.
mm,
And and that is where you are, generally speaking,
mm,
particularly as my disability is visible. I have a
mm,
physical disability and therefore it's visible. I'm in a chair. You are the dancer who is the disabled dancer. You are the visibly disabled dancer, and I'm okay with that.
yeah,
But you are the one who is adapting to fit into the space that you're going into.
yeah,
You are the one, the onus is on you to make those changes, to do that work.
mm,
Um, and of course, that's not always the case. There are some amazing teachers out there who do understand about inclusive spaces and inclusive practice. But invariably, when you are, if you're going into the mainstream, you have to sort of put a different kind of armor on to be ready to do that. And also, there's also something around getting yourself to a place where you are ready to do that in terms of your ability to translate for your body, because there isn't necessarily the time to be learning
figure.
about translation as well
Mm.
as to be doing the work of the class.
Yeah, I have found, and you and I have talked about this extensively from both of our points of view. And I had the same experience. Um, Almost like you're coming in as a student, but inevitably you end up becoming the teacher and teaching the teacher who's trying to teach you. So you end up becoming the
Mm.
one who's leading. And as you say, there isn't always time to do those translations or show the facilitator how to help you with those translations. The onus is always on you yourself. How do you feel? How do you feel that you can how as we as disabled dancers and disabled artists can combat that problem?
I feel like the more you, I remember you've spoken a lot, and we've spoken about this idea of finding those spaces where those supportive spaces where you can find your tribe and you can explore and experiment, and having that chance to explore and experiment before you expose. I say expose in inverted commas,
Yeah,
expose yourself to the more um to those more mainstream environments where maybe you are more you feel maybe that you're a little bit more alone. um that if you kind of go in knowing that it's like, well, yeah, I know how my body works and I know why I'm going to this class, and I know what I want to get out of it. And yeah, I might not get it, but I know to have a really sure sense of why you're there. And
Yeah.
yes, it's not work that we should be having to do. We shouldn't be having to think about that stuff. But for me, I found that preparation just a little bit more helpful, because
Yeah.
if you go in going, oh, I'm gonna have a, I want to really work on my translations, and I really want to be able to keep up with everything, and I really want to dance to my fullest. Like, actually, they're all beautiful aims to have, but they're all massive aims to have,
And all very different.
and all very different.
Yeah.
And nobody, not just a disabled dancer, might not be able to achieve all of them. And maybe you move between them, but um I just
I
found that
think-
management of expectations really helpful for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And I also think that, when things are very disability led or
Yes.
disability informed, not just by one person, by a plethora of people, it works better. And again, finding your tribe, because there's some incredible inclusive dance practitioners who don't necessarily have a disability, who are so informed, but it's because they've taken the time, the energy, and the space to listen and really inform themselves by people in the know, and it's very much a collaborative experience, I feel. Your thoughts?
It is, and I think we're now, yeah, I think we're now really seeing this an acknowledgement of not just the time it takes to be a non-disabled informed practitioner, but also we're really seeing the rise of like those artists that are those disabled artists that are leading, and those disabled led companies, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and
And disabled led programs.
exactly like
Yeah,
IDC,
yeah,
and what that allows for in terms of the different ways of working, and that there isn't just this one way of working, that there are nuances to practice, that there are nuances to approaches, but all are incredibly valuable, and they are supporting the development of the sector
yeah.
for everybody.
For everybody. I was just about to hit upon that actually, about everybody. There might be some people of the thinking that when you're working inclusively, that it just benefits people who have disabilities in the area of the arts. Yes, of course it does. But I fundamentally believe it benefits all. It raises the game for everybody.
A- Absolutely, and I think within the systems that our society operates in, we've seen firsthand how um, unsupportive and uninclusive they can be for a range of people. So actually, if we are looking at inclusive practice as best practice,
Mm.
not with the idea that we've reached the best, but that you're always
Thriving. Yeah.
striving for to learn and to grow, and this gentle curiosity and way of working, and also accepting that you will never get it 100% right. And the beauty of it is that you will always be surprised. And because we're working with human beings, and because human beings are beautiful, and we're messy, and we're
And complex.
complex,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I love that sentence about that gentle curiosity, because I think if a person is arrogant enough to believe that they're walking into a space as a facilitator and they're all seeing, all knowing, all dancing, excuse the pun, but they know everything. No, we're forever learning, we're forever evolving, and as you say, people are messy and situations are complex. Talk to me a little bit about the palatable disabled body and all of that, because we had a very interesting topic of discussion about that recently, and it can be a bit uncomfortable, but it's an
yeah,
important conversation.
it's a really sticky one, and I think and I it's a drum that I've been banging for many years.
too.
And I'm really curious about like the poster disabilities,
Yeah.
and how, or the hierarchy of disability.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And often that, this is controversial, I guess, but often I think I wonder, or I have a question, whether it's how so much of in our society is about fitting in and
And a certain way of looking as a
and
disabled person.
to- yes, yes, and it's like, oh well, you're sort of the same as everybody else, but you're just sitting down, or maybe it's that, oh, if we see you from this part,
You
then
almost kind of look like it's acceptable and it's
yeah,
okay.
and
Yeah.
it's like, but oh, if maybe there are some elements of disability that, oh, maybe that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a bit too disabled. It's a bit too out there, you know. And and it's true, it does exist.
yes,
There's no
yeah,
point in
and
saying it does exist. It doesn't, because it does. And I think fundamentally that it's important to welcome everybody. I'm always saying it, and Louisa will be smiling, but it's important to welcome everybody to the dance floor. I keep having the analogy in my head that if we were all in a nightclub and we were all clubbing, nobody's really taking that much notice of anybody else. We're just all on the dance floor having a dance and having a beautiful time. And it's such a lovely connection that we really need to see disability and disability arts in the same kind of vein,
mm,
with that gentle curiosity, but knowing that um, up, those that are bodies that are seemed as obscure, and I'm using
mm,
inverted commas as well, um, are beautiful and perfect, and we're all perfectly imperfect. All of us on the planet, and
yeah.
so there's room for everybody, and we all gain more. We gain more. Any more thoughts about this before I go off into a tangent?
I wonder whether, just as you were speaking, and you were talking about like celebrating who we are and in all the different forms that we come in, it makes me think about whether currently the more palatable side of it is if you can still sort of fit into the existing structures
Yes,
that are there, and actually it's you know to be seen as disruptive and needing more, or being you know uh too drastically different, or looking, or just needing more, needing different, not needing more, just needing different,
different. Yeah,
um um that can't be sort of um sandwiched into an existing, you know square on a jigsaw board, or um or a biscuit cutter. Because some of us, we can sort of squeeze ourselves into certain places, but it doesn't necessarily feel good. But we've been taught societally that squeezing into is better
yeah,
than, in inverted commas, than doing something completely different, and making something new. And actually, as I get older, I'm like, well, why not make something new?
yeah.
Um,
Why not disrupt the disability and the preconceived notions about what is the perfect palatable body, and make room for everybody in the space.
Yeah, but
Um,
I really acknowledge that I didn't believe that in my 20s.
yeah,
So I really acknowledge the privilege, I guess, of age and experience, and
yeah,
and being supported by an amazing tribe of people that
yeah.
showed me that wasn't
And
um
from my point of view, it's something that I grew up believing.
Which is
Yeah.
amazing.
And that doesn't make me great. I just didn't see the difference.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
saw dance as dance. And so then
yeah.
I've also experienced of the perception of the palatable disabled person and the acceptable disabled person within the company and the challenges around that. And I have two very, very good friends of mine who didn't feel like they fit any kind of norm or model of anything that was out there. So they created their own company. And there's power, there's empowerment in that as well. So I think it's very important to genuinely find your tribe. Now, saying all of that,
Mhm.
'cause we could talk about that till the cows come home. Talk to me about so um you were working away with Candoco and then you went off at yourself as your own artist and you've been doing
Mhm.
incredible things. Um and making short films and working on different writings and different pieces and working here, there, and everywhere. So tell us what you've been up to of late and what's going on in your world in the arts at the minute. You did a beautiful project recently.
I
That I'm
did.
very sad I didn't get to go to. I really would have loved to have gone to it in London. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I was working with an amazing and beautiful artist friend and colleague, Oro Bell, um, in London, and we were supported by um, an amazing dance organisation here called Independent Dance, and
Mm,
they are really striving to mm, challenge the ableist systems, ableist and racist systems that just exist within our culture in the arts, and just asking questions. And so they asked us to facilitate a session around inclusivity. And when Oro and I started talking, we've had conversations for many years. But one of the things that we realized is that the session was called Being Together. But what we realized when we started talking about inclusion is actually the problems we have, or the stickiness around the word inclusion and the complexity around the word inclusion. Who is doing the included? Who is doing the including? Who is by nature excluded? Who is able to be in the space? Who isn't? What is our position looking at power and hierarchy that is inherent, even if we say that it's not, that is disingenuous, because there are powers and hierarchies,
mm,
and within that also, again, with this session of with this idea of being together, what does it mean to be in a space to be together, and what does it mean to be included, how and feel included? That was a huge thing for us, of
mm,
like, to focus on the feeling, because I think sometimes in dance the feeling is it's a very privately or individually experienced thing that sometimes we get to share, but
mm,
actually we just trust that we feel a thing or it feels good, so therefore we do it. But actually we really wanted to question that feeling of inclusion and potentially exclusion, and how it's not just, oh, well, I feel included because I'm going into this session and that's it. But actually all the nuances of a session and all the tiny, tiny moments of humanness and interaction and shift that we have just in our being and being in relation to others.
mm,
Um, and just questioning sort of existing structures as well. Like, one thing that Ara and I talked a lot about is we speak a lot in inclusive practice around what it means to bring people into the space, to make a space inclusive, to get people there. But we
mm,
never talk about if somebody needs to leave. And how
mm,
do we make the leaving be okay if that person needs to leave, or if they don't or can't be there for the whole session.
Or they need to sit, or because they're tired or maybe
Exactly.
fatigued, and they need to sit on the side for a while and sit down and observe. How can we make sure that we're still working integratively or inclusively, and making sure that everybody still feels seen and heard in the room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So just questioning these expectations that we have, particularly in the mainstream dance sector, around what it means to be in, what it means to be out, what it means to be doing and not doing,
Yeah.
um, what it means to be engaged. So yes, that's one part of my work that I've been doing, yes. And
And what were from that, because I genuinely mean this, I would have loved to have been there, because these are topics that, I mean, you and I have been friends for God about 2 years now, and that happened in such a lovely, interesting, peculiar way, but so organically, and
mm,
we've had such incredible conversations. But what were your findings from that, and what kind of response were you getting from the participants that were in the room?
I think it was a beautiful surprise, how warmly the session was received,
Mm,
um, and how what we realized, what we continually realize, I think, is how rare it is for a lot of people to feel that they can completely show up as the person they are and they want to be on that day,
yeah.
without compromising parts of themselves.
Mm,
Um, and acknowledging also, Or and I, from the get-go with that session, we acknowledged that that space was incredibly complex, and that it would be messy, and there would be times of where different needs were in conflict, and not out and out conflict, but that were contradictory to each other. And actually, when you create a space of holding that is not just reliant on Oro and myself, but is uh, also the co-responsibility of the group and each individual for themselves, how
mm,
that can create a net of its own.
mm.
But but it I think we were constantly finding and questioning, and it's a never-ending sort of beautiful, at times overwhelming, but also beautiful, like, puzzle, but a puzzle that should never be deserted, a puzzle that you need to keep coming back to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think you're right. Agree with you wholeheartedly that I think one of the most important qualities that you can have as a facilitator in an inclusive space is that you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to be flexible and adjustable and adapt, because the situation is always changing, evolving, and adapting. And I think that's just something that's so vitally important. Either the physical space can change, the circumstances of the people in the room can change, the mood can change, the time of the day, things can change. There is a million different variables, and also some beautiful nuggets, because great conversations can come out of absolutely nowhere, as you and I have both experienced, even
Mm.
just chatting ourselves or working together in a facilitation setting when you came over to do some work with IDC.
Yeah,
So tell me about some of the other lovely, wonderful things that you um, have been up to of late, because you have a bit going on.
I do. So I've been performing for a beautiful human and colleague, friend of mine, Tim Casson, as part of Casson and Friends, their show Arcade, which is just a joy.
Mm,
It's very human, and we get to play games with the public, and it's just beautiful. And then alongside that, I'm also coming off the back of a year of research.
Tell us more about your research, because that's been very interesting to hear about and to read about.
It's been a ride, a real ride. So the official title was Expanding Intimacy in My Practice. Intimacy and basically humaning is a huge part of my work. Relationships and connection are at the core of everything I do, whether that's as a performer, whether that's as a facilitator, whether that's as a choreographer, and that human to human connection, both with yourself, with other, and also with the spaces that you're in. And I realized that for me over the last number of years, things had shifted, and I had shifted as a dancer massively, and I wasn't the dancer I was, and so I needed to invest time and space to remap myself again, to figure out where I was, and what it meant to get to know me and my body again, in different ways, but also get to know me and what I was willing to do now as a dancer, because I think sometimes as a dancer I realized that I'd found myself in spaces where I was doing things because I love dancing, so I was just doing them, and then I was like, and I wasn't listening to my body and my brain, and things were going on that maybe I should have been listening to.
And then when those things are happening and you become injured or you become sore and you're the main person with the disability, then all of a sudden it can become a challenge and you just kind of have to deal with it, but deal with it yourself and figure it out on your own terms. And there isn't always necessarily the space to go and heal and take that time. I love the word that you said about the remapping of yourself. So when you've been remapping yourself, what have you figured out?
I figured out I figured out two things as part of this research, I think. Well, more than two things, but generally speaking, there was two things. For me, there was a real question around what I needed to do for myself and what I continue to need to do to myself to make sure I'm listening to my body and my brain as a dancer and as a human. But also I was really curious. I became more and more curious about intimacy, in the broadest sense, and all the nuances of intimacy within dance and within what we do, which is for me one of the reasons why I love what I do. But noting that it isn't your regular job, and it isn't your, as in the most common job, or it isn't the way that everybody relates to each other, and just acknowledging the potential complexities of that, and actually how do we support not only ourselves but also other dancers and artists that we work with to make sure that they are aware, or as aware if they want to be, of their needs and wants, boundaries. And because as dancers often that is not taught.
No, it's absolutely not. And also when you're young or you're new to something, and especially as for any dancer, but particularly if you are a dancer with a disability, um, those things can become very blurred, because when you're younger, there's a sense of wanting to please or impress or get that message out there that about inclusion and disability. And so almost at times you're almost sacrificing yourself and your own well-being for the good of the good, not
Yes.
realizing as you get older that by supporting and minding yourself, it's for the good of the good as well, and better things happen
Yeah.
when you take care of yourself for inclusive practice.
Yeah. And I guess also for me, what I've realized is that in the same way with inclusive practice, you can't plan for everything. You can't safeguard. You can be trained, you can be aware of safeguarding practices, of trauma informed practices, um of consent forward practices and proactive care, but
Mm,
you can't plan for everything. So also for me, there is something around what happens, how do we support dancers when something does happen, or when they do need a moment, or that it is okay to stop. It is okay to be not sure about something. It is okay to come back to something. It is okay to try it in a different way. And so, yes, part of my research was around the existing role of the intimacy professional that currently exists, particularly in the acting world. But
mm,
I was looking at it in relation to what currently exists and how that might be applicable to the dance world and or might not, and also
yeah.
potentially what else the dance world might need.
Mm.
But that is a far bigger piece of work around
Yeah, I was just
the
about to
wider
say.
sector.
Yeah, I was about to say. So what now with that then? You know?
So there's the very personal stuff of like me as the dancer, and then there's this very big stuff around the sector. And I would, yeah, that's a much bigger piece of work, and I
Yeah,
don't quite know what to do with it, but I know that I all of that work, all of those conversations, all of that research is constantly informing my practice. And
yeah,
for now, the more I work and the more I do, or the more I just be, I guess,
yeah.
um, it's still doing something. It's not dormant. It is still alive. It is still happening.
Absolutely, I'm into that. Of course it is. You know,
I
you're
hope.
I know. Living, breathing, moving, and you're right. The conversations are incredible. I mean, when you came over to do some work with Inclusive Dance Cork, we impromptuously ended up having, because it was something that you and I had just been speaking about ourselves, from about different personal experiences we had, and it's just an interesting topic to both of us. So we ended up having a bigger conversation in the bigger group with that, and some interesting things came out of that for people actually. And it's so important. I really feel it's so important to be able to hold space with people, because things happen, things can get slightly a bit more, I wouldn't say complicated, but things pop up for people, and unbeknownst, and you have to allow people the room to discuss and talk about, and see where they want to go with things. But it's a it's very much an important topic that needs to be ongoing in conversation, and so lots more work needs to be done about it. Of course, a lot of people wouldn't be thinking about uh, disability, intimacy, and the dance space, and discussing it so much. So when you open those nuances of conversation, it leads to very, very interesting spaces and places, you know.
Yeah.
So what next? What next is happening for you besides coming over to do some work with IDC at some
Oh,
point?
I'd love to come back. It would be a pleasure. Yeah, IDC is one of those, you're talking about those the conversations and what they bring and those opportunities. And I think I'm incredibly grateful to IDC because there are like those conversations take bravery and they
Mm,
take courage and holding, and not every space and not every person is willing to be in that. And I I'm yeah, it was a real privilege to be able to hold that space with you with the group and for IDC, because yeah, as you say, those conversations are so important, and but they do take bravery,
I do.
and for me next, I'm currently wearing lots of different hats with lots of different jobs as facilitator, producer, performer, for different people. So there's a lot of like morphing and changing for me currently, as is the beauty of being a freelancer. So I'm sort of at any one time probably several things all at once. But
Yeah,
I'm really trying to also give time to my own practice and
yeah,
my own conversations, because as much as I love um working for others, I also know at this stage of my career that I can't stray too far from who I am, and I always want to be able to bring who I am into spaces, um, and not sacrifice that or
yeah,
have to hide that. Um, so yeah, I always want to try and bring it back to me and my work, even if yeah, I can't be in a creative space all of the time. I feel like there's always part of me that's ticking over.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah. And as long as you're right, and as long as you're staying true to the origins of you, and I very, very much echo that. Like that's why I'm constantly talking about your tribe. You know, I've been in spaces where I've been with people and I thought I was in the right tribe, and then I find out, no, this isn't the right space. I'm only getting to half honor me and what I believe and my ethos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not just as a dancer and a performer, as a disabled artist, just as a human being,
Mm.
I really believe there's space for everybody. When you just touch upon something that you said earlier, when you talk about spaces that were good, bad, and different, when you did your formal training at university, how was that experience?
Very challenging. I didn't last very long. Um,
Okay.
at that point, institution, I tried it, and I personally, um, I realized that maybe the institution setting wasn't for me in the current. I should say, this was 2009. So this
Okay.
was a long time ago.
Mm,
Um, because although the university I was in were doing their best, I was being asked to, and they'd done their research and they had done lots of work. I was on my own,
mm,
and um, or I should say I felt that I was on my own.
mm,
Um, and I think, and I I was very much the I could see at that point, I could see the potential for the partnership, like I could see what the university were doing, and I could see, but it came from theory. It didn't
mm,
come from practice.
yeah,
So when disabled people were coming into the space and coming into the course, um, they were the guinea pigs for the actual real life version. And I say that with no ill meaning, but whereas you, and then it was the disabled people that were finding out that, or the disabled young dancers that were finding out, myself included, what things didn't work. But we were, as you say, we were learning, and we were then telling the teachers,
yeah,
and it had come from such a well-meaning place of
absolutely.
making a course accessible.
yeah,
but it had been done by only non-disabled
yeah,
people in a university setting.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas, what if they'd collaborated with a disabled company or a disabled artist or a disabled individual to create this course? And then what could have happened? Because the minute disabled artists were on that course, the learning was exponential for everybody of like, oh, this works or this doesn't, or this could be this or this could be this. But it was at the expense of those disabled students. And
mm,
I know other disabled students who were able to stay and who got their degree, and that's amazing. I know another dancer who went on to do a master's, a
mm,
part-time master's, and all credit to them. They did it, and I'm like, hats off to you.
yeah.
But I couldn't do it.
But there is a little bit of a, and you're right, I applaud them too. But there is a little bit of self-sacrifice then in ways and chipping away of yourself that isn't necessarily great either. And I don't know that person that you're speaking about, so I can't really speak for them. But I've never had any formal training, because there was never a college for me to go to get formal training.
Hmm.
But I always know, and I always felt, because I learned from on the fly,
Yeah.
from surrounding myself with really great different facilitators. Really inform myself, going to lots of different workshops, talking to really good people, and by living it, the lived
Yes.
experience of doing it. And I genuinely feel that when you've a person-centered approach to all of this with the learnings and with the theory and with the practice, and it's coming from a disability led, but also working together as a unit where people are all on, singing off the same hymn sheet, for want of a better word, when like-minded
Mm.
individuals are working together. That is best practice. That is the way forward. That it only elevates the experience for everybody, and then nobody feels like the guinea pig, you know. And I suppose my question is, before we lead into opening it to everybody else, is what would you feel are the top three things that, if the top three things off the top of your mind that you feel that, like, either institutional settings or companies or anything that we've been discussing can do to make things more holistically, authentically inclusive, and of inclusive work, inclusive dance?
Mm.
What are the things
Talk
that
to the
you
people
are?
involved in inclusive dance. Work with the people involved. Work with the people who are doing the stuff, who know the stuff.
Mm,
Bring in those disabled artists, bring in those disability-led companies like IDC, like, the professional dance companies. Pay the disabled artists, you
pay
know,
the disabled artists, yeah,
yeah,
and pay them properly,
pay them properly. Like, and I know that's complex around navigating benefit systems, but again, like, for these institutions, it's if they want to do, if they want to be inclusive, if they want to work inclusively, if they want to work with inclusive practice and inclusive dance with disabled artists, they have to start to understand what these systems are that the disabled artists are and also navigating
yeah, all
just to
the time,
just to exist.
just to, in life, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just to exist, and so much of it is like, oh, the disabled artist is employed, and then they're juggling, okay, how do I navigate what I'm earning, but then I'm also at risk of having my benefits taken away because I'm now earning money. And it's like, well, actually, if the institution started to also be responsible and know what's going on and be a voice, the voice of an institution is therefore then not putting the disabled artist at risk.
yeah,
As opposed, it's the individual versus the institute. So I just, there is so much knowledge and there's so much brilliant practice, including by the likes of yourself at IDC, out there. And I just wish that, you know, because it's there for the taking.
yeah,
If the institutions want it genuinely want
I
it.
think I think there's a fear though. I understand it. I really do.
You
Because I
too.
think people feel it's going to be slightly more complex. And it's a lot of work, or we're not really sure of the answers. But that's what conversation is about. And that's what partnership is about. And that's what collaboration is about. And actually you find, because we've had some very successful years working in a university, and hopefully we'll carry on to do so with another university. And so it can be done, and it can be done very, very successfully, but gotta just break down those barriers of fear. Any last thoughts around this before I open up to questions?
Just to I wish there was a wider acceptance in the world generally, but also in dance, that it's messy and things will be beautiful and things will go wrong. And it's not about it never going wrong, in inverted commas. It's
Yeah.
about what we do after that.
Yeah. What happens when you fall down?
Yeah, what happens when we fall down? How do we take care? How do we navigate that? How do we learn from that? How do we take everybody with us?
Yeah, take everybody with, and how I love that. How can we take everybody with us? Because you're right. Everybody deserves to have the opportunity. And you're right, it is messy, but also beautiful things come out of messy.
Absolutely.
Even better things can come out of messy, you know. Kimberly, you're a gift. Thank you. I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day, all night. I have no doubt we'll have many more conversations about lots of different things. But in the meantime, I'm going to open it up to everybody else and give people a chance to ask whatever questions they would like to. So I'm opening up there if anybody's any questions.